On this episode of Bootstrappers, we're going to talk about estate planning. And the reason we're going to talk about this is because entrepreneurs typically are amazing at their businesses and then totally neglect their personal estate planning and all the legal and financial ramifications that go along with that. So we're going to talk with James Saintvil about what we need to do to get our personal lives in order in adult.
Welcome to Bootstrappers, a unique program designed to help make your business better. From property management to remote workers, Bootstrappers is here to help your business succeed. Bootstrappers is a production of Anaquim LLC, so let's lace up those business boots and join Bootstrappers with Jeremy and Gwen Aspen.
Welcome to Bootstrappers, where we talk about topics that matter to real estate entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Gwen Aspen, here with my spouse, Jeremy Aspen.
Me.
And we have a really exciting show today where we're going to talk about entrepreneurs getting their personal affairs in order. It's a big issue in entrepreneur circles because we're so obsessed with our businesses that we forget and neglect our personal affairs. And so today we're going to speak with James Saintvil of Jade Law in Washington, D.C. about what we need to do to get our personal affairs to match our business affairs. So I think it's going to be a really exciting show.
Yeah, it is important stuff because over the course of the last, 20 years we've been entrepreneurs, we've neglected to do this, and I think we should probably talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
So Bootstrappers is powered by Anaquim, and Anaquim helps businesses, especially in the property management realm, to transform their business and scale their business to be able to make more money. Whether you need virtual assistants, the 24-hour hotline, maintenance, leasing full-blown back office, whatever it is that you need, we are there to help.
And if you're a fan of the show, share with your friends and like and subscribe on YouTube.
Or your enemies. We don't care.
And leave us a nice message and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We love the feedback. And we will send a book, whatever James Saintvil's favorite book is, to the most insightful review on Apple Podcasts after the show. So stay tuned till the end to learn more about the book giveaway. So Jeremy, let's get real here. Okay, so I feel kind of vulnerable with this episode, I'm not going to lie, because the truth of the matter is I have a lot of things completely in order in my life. And at the same time, I'd probably be homeless if it weren't for Jeremy.
That's a wrap. If I've said it
I'm
once,
not even kidding.
My scare tactics are finally starting to work. Now people understand why she is with me.
I would live in a car with like too many dogs and cats. I probably would.
No, because you're cleaner than me.
I am cleaner, but I really do love dogs and cats. So.
Not that much. We have a dog right now that stinks.
Well, he has his own health issues, but that's beside the point. So the thing is that our business books are perfect, you guys. Like to the penny, the day after the beginning of the month. So on the 2nd of any month, our books are perfect for the business.
But I'll say this, and this is for the property management group out there. When you're in charge of other people's money and you've got 250 clients, all who need to have separate books, the easiest way to do that is by having one trust account, and inside that trust account, keep different ledgers for each of your owners. If you have a software that doesn't suck, it does at least that. And so we have one bank account to track everything inside of. And if you can do that for your property management company, for your clients, then it makes it way easier to actually manage your own books.
And you reconcile everything every day.
So, and because when clients call, they want to know, like, how much money do I have in the bank? You can't wait, or you ought not wait for a week of receipts to stack up in your accountant's or your bookkeeper's office and then start entering them and then start asking the technicians, what job was this for? No, it needs to be done in real time. So by the end of any month at Wistar Group in Omaha, we have the books reconciled at that moment. As a matter of fact, even with our service at Anaquim, where we're doing the back office books, we're reconciling the books by the end of the first day of the following month. So you close out the books in November, December 1st, Done.
And I'm not talking specifically, this show is more like estate planning and everything, but it all kind of goes together. Like if your finances are a mess, then likely you also don't have your legal documents in order. And at our business, and I think this is a lot like a lot of other entrepreneurs, we're obsessed with our business and everything is perfect. But then after working a long week and we're exhausted, then we tend to neglect, or me, because Jeremy's more organized and he holds everything together. I'm exhausted by the weekend, and then I don't want to work on the small things. And I think that's like a lot of entrepreneurs. The other thing is entrepreneurs are visionary and they're hungry and they go and get the business and then they neglect the details. And so I just wanted to be super honest about some of the things that I am neglecting more to hold myself accountable.
And I would say this, and this might actually be something people can take with them. I am actually not organized at all. I'm terribly organized, but I am disciplined. Like if it does rise to a level of me thinking it needs to be done, I try to avoid the downstream problems by having a checklist. And on the first of the next month, I just do these things. And it's done. And that makes it so much easier.
So it's so funny in our relationship because I'm organized with like my calendar is perfect and my time management at work is amazing, but my legal documents, my finances, generally speaking, except I did do everything on this last weekend because my New Year's resolution for 2021 is to be organized. But generally speaking, it's messy, and you're the opposite. Like your time management may not be like perfect in your calendar.
What? It's so bad.
But you make sure that all the legal stuff and the finances are done. So it's kind of interesting how we hold each other accountable for each other's weaknesses.
Here's a tidbit for somebody. Like, do your own keep your personal finances on the same cadence as your company's books.
And we're working on that, and we're getting there. But I'm just going to talk about some of the other messy things about my personal life, because I think that there's so much shame with entrepreneurs that our personal lives are messy, even though our businesses are beautiful. I think this is actually a common occurrence, but we haven't looked at our will since 2012.
Yeah.
And we have an 11 and 13-year-old, so we do have that on the books to do this weekend.
Oh.
I have on my list of things to do, I have the title is all screwed up on our Michigan house. I don't even know if I told you this, but the title is super screwed up on our Michigan house.
Really?
For me. You're on it. You're fine.
For the house or for
the house. Uh-huh. So I have to fix that document and get it notarized.
Ooh.
I know. And then another thing that maybe I haven't told you.
Hey, so if something happens, it goes to me. Yeah, it would anyway.
It would anyway. But okay, so the other thing is that my Nebraska financial interest statement, which I have to do because I'm on a board for the state of Nebraska, it's a year overdue.
Oof. Okay, well, get that done by the time this airs, because
I'm going to do it this weekend. But I'm just saying, I'm being really honest. So that financial interest statement was due pretty much a year ago. So I'm pretty sure I have a fine somewhere.
And it might be
in the state of Nebraska because I haven't done it. It makes me look sketchy, even though I have nothing to hide. I just didn't do it yet. So anyway, I'm being really honest here because I think entrepreneurs, I'm pretty sure, my hunch is that I'm not alone here. What do you think?
I'd be curious if there's who is not alone. Leave a comment, because I kind of feel like maybe we are the only ones that suck this bad.
No, because we do have a lot of the stuff. It's just old. We have to go find it, and we've got to get it organized.
We have the best of intentions. Best of intentions,
but we're
baby.
so busy with our business that we totally neglect our personal life. And then here's the thing. Here's the irony of it. Why did we even start these businesses in the first place? Like, what's our whole purpose in life? To leave a legacy. To leave a legacy and be like great parents to our kids. Like that's our.
And we want to be a pain in the ass to our kids when we're dead.
No, so that's the irony of it. Is like everything we do is to make sure that our kids are fine, right? That's why we own businesses. That's why we've done what we've done. And then when it comes down to it, though, if we don't have these little details in order, we are making their lives miserable, or whoever is in charge of them, if we die like tomorrow, we're making their life miserable unless all this stuff is really organized. So I think entrepreneurs really focus on big, broad topics. We're visionary, we focus on the future, and we focus on our why. And so if you struggle with these details because it's just not your thing, like Jeremy and I both struggle with details in some capacity or another. Thankfully, they're in different areas so we can balance each other out. But we both struggle with details. But if we focus on the bigger thing, which is the kids and our legacy, and the whole point of everything that we do is to make their lives better, I think we can get our lives together.
Yeah, well,
that's the goal.
Well, yeah.
Get it together. Become adults.
But this is one of those topics that's always in the background and never really comes to any sort of a significant place in our brains because it's after you die. Like, I mean, there's no real urgency. Nobody ever thinks, well, that's not true, but not very many people that are in good health are saying, you know what, I'm going to die soon. I should be prepared for death. It's always one of the easiest things you just push off because why? If there's something that's got to give, that seems to be a good one. It is, in fact, as important of a thing as you can do. And the nice thing about it is you do it once, and with very little maintenance, you at least have something you can keep it up.
Yeah, I think that's true. So I'm excited for this episode because we're going to get into all the things that somebody needs to be an organized person who's adulting.
Adulting. I hate that gerund.
Well, yeah, my generation likes it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I've been adulting for ever since I've been an adult, turns out.
So this is the perfect segue to talk to the expert. So we're really lucky to have James Saintvil, who is an estate planner, helping us out today. Hello, James. How are you this morning?
Hello.
So does everybody?
Glenn, how are you?
Does everybody call you James, or do they call you Jim or Jimmy or?
Just James.
Okay.
That's it. Very simple and straightforward.
So, James, you're the principal of Jade Law, and you're based in Washington, D.C., but you also practice in New York and New Jersey, and you focus solely on estate planning. Is that correct?
So I don't practice in New York. I am barred there.
Oh, okay.
Eventually, maybe I will, but I do have an office in New Jersey as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so can you first just make us not feel bad? We already talked about what a hot mess I am in terms of my personal life and having all my ducks in a row. Is this common for entrepreneurs to struggle in this area?
It's definitely, and it's not just for entrepreneurs, so you shouldn't feel bad at all. Plenty of people actually struggle getting all of their legal affairs together. And in fact, estate planning is one of the main areas people struggle with because a couple of reasons. One is like many Americans are so engrossed in their work and they continue to strive and reach their career goals, whether it's within an organization or running a business themselves. And that drive is great. But people don't stop to think about what happens if something happens to you or to your family and you lose your income or and all the assets you've accumulated. That's just one area. And the other thing is, in addition to that, it's very difficult for people to kind of just face the reality of their mortality.
Yes.
People don't want to think about death.
We are
and
weird
so it's
that way.
It's a very hard topic to approach. People just think they're going to move on with their career and keep going. We are all Superman and we're going to keep going, but that's not the reality of life.
Yeah, and then at some point we're just dead.
It's like a mix of
Exactly.
Too late.
I feel like Americans are overly optimistic. And we literally never talk about death. Actually, we were talking about that at my book club yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's like we avoid it at all costs. And then the thing is,
It's definitely true.
James.
It's true because a lot of people will push it aside. And some people do actually think about their estate planning, but they say, oh, I can get to that. I'll do it later.
So,
and then they continue to kick the can down the road.
I think that's kind of what happened to us because we've been through this process before, but for the life of us, we can't figure out where anything is or even what we had intended to do.
I know. It's really embarrassing. We did it in 2012 and then we totally forgot about it. And now we have to look at it again. But my question is, okay, so for people who are total disasters, just what are the documents they have to have?
So I would say not just for people who are total disasters. At the base level, you should at least have a will, powers of attorney, and medical directives. And if you have any children, any minor children specifically, I would encourage people to do a designation of standby guardian. If you want me to, I can elaborate on why the designation of standby guardian is an important document.
Yeah. Well, if we can go through let's start with the will. So what are the main things that people have to have in their will? Because a lot of people are just going to go, I got to do this. It's, 2021 is around the corner and I got to get my stuff together. And so is
my impending death.
And so I'm just going to go on LegalZoom and create a will.
Oh,
right?
That's a good one.
So tell us why we need to actually get a real attorney and what needs to be in the will.
So a will basically is just a simple document that kind of just controls the distribution of your assets. Where do you want your things to go after your death? But it's more important than that. It names the representatives that you want to who can financially handle the situation when it comes. So who's going to be able to collect all of your assets, who knows who's financially capable in order to make sure that all the debts that you owed, all your creditors are paid prior to making distributions to your beneficiaries. On top of that, how are you distributing these assets to your beneficiaries? I know you two have small children. Well, with your children, there's something called the Uniform Transfer to Minors Act, which you cannot give a child who's under the age of 18 $1 million. That's not how it works. It would end up in a custodial account for that child with some kind of guardian or custodian making the distributions to that child as necessary. Whereas as parents, if you want more control over that, you can name a trust for that child, and you can have that trust terminate when they turn 25, 35, or you can have it continue for their life. And there are some reasons to do that as well. There are some protection issues that you can cover within the trust as well. So it's kind of giving you that flexibility to make these decisions and make sure that all of your ducks are in a row.
So
that's basically what the will does.
If I went on LegalZoom, why is it going to suck? Why is it a bad idea?
So with LegalZoom,
you don't get paid. I mean,
no, I'm just curious. I'm sure they're missing some components that are super important.
Yes. So LegalZoom and other do-it-yourself, because LegalZoom is not the only place. There's Rocket Lawyer and all these other things that you can do it online. But one, they can lead to some ambiguities in which are ripe for contests. And two, there's certain nuances of the family dynamic and things that those types of fill in the blank forms do not cover. So when you go to an estate planning attorney, we don't only ask about your finances. We do ask about all of your finances, but we also get into things such as, what is your relationship with your child? What are you have two children. What are the siblings like? Do they get along? Do they not get along? And we just contemplate the entire family dynamic. So one child might have special needs. One might not. One might have a substance abuse problem depending on how old they are. So these are different things that we take into consideration when doing an estate plan. It's very tailored to the individual. Whereas if you go to a Rocket Lawyer or LegalZoom, you're getting a standard template where you're filling in the blank with names.
Yeah. And that's really, if we're thinking about the broader discussion, which is the only way I think you're going to get entrepreneurs to really get this done, is okay, what's the why? The why is to fulfill the legacy that you've worked your butt off creating and making sure that your kids talk to each other after you're dead, right? If
Definitely.
We're really thinking about what we're after, that would be it. And so if you don't plan your will correctly, everybody's fighting and no one talks to each other anymore. How often do you see that?
Exactly. That comes up all the time. One, if you don't have a will, you're going to die what's called intestate, which what happens when you die with no will or intestate is each jurisdiction, which I'm using jurisdiction, it's a term for states. So each jurisdiction actually has laws on the books of where your assets will go, and every single jurisdiction is different. So it's just wherever the state decided that's the best place for your assets to go is where it's going to go. So you're giving up control
what's
to
an
the state.
Is that formulaic, or is it just that somebody that's in charge says no? They'll do case by case, literally.
I will say it it's not, it's formulaic. It's just written in its state statute. So I can give you an example that many states will say everything will go to your spouse if you're married. There are certain states that say, no, only a portion will go to your spouse if you're married and a portion to your kids if you have children. So they're very different. And it all goes off of who's left when you pass away. So if you have a spouse, if you have children,
a girlfriend,
if you have parents, if you...
What's the girlfriend allocation?
That can come in as well. So these are all things to consider. So for an example, I know if you are a parent in DC and you pass away with a child and a spouse and 2 children, and you die, whether you die in DC versus whether you die in Virginia makes a difference in where those assets go. And it's right across this one, it borders DC.
Weird.
So it's interesting just seeing how the different jurisdictions say where things go versus you actually taking control and making the affirmative step to say where you want your things to go.
Wow. Okay, so we need to review our will.
Yeah, well, we are. Actually, I printed it last week and gave it to Gwen.
Because we're going to get...
Which I think is where was the genesis of this show, because we read it and we're like, geez, what the... How? Okay, let's reorganize this. Like, one of the things we had was after the kids' school was paid, college, then it went to our favorite charity. All the rest. And we were like, okay, maybe we want to change that. We were a little bit too idealistic there.
So you're leaving nothing to your children?
We weren't.
That's how...
Yeah.
We were like, money will ruin them. You get nothing.
Which I think there's a lot of truth to that, but
maybe nothing. Yeah. So we have to review that. But okay.
But what if your children decide to go to school after undergrad?
We had addressed that.
Did you address it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to review it, but that is a big reason why you're on here is because we were just chatting, and I was like, wait. Let's talk about this while we're on the podcast, because don't give me this advice now. Like let's do it in a podcast
I will say
format.
Trust can be a great tool.
Okay, so we should talk about that.
And we screwed that up too.
Well, I was going to say trust under your will. So after their college is paid for, you could put everything into trust and make it flexible to where if they have some kind of business inclination, that money from that trust can help them. It can be the seed money for them to start a business or to do something with their lives. So there are so many different aspects you can look at it from, and you know your children better than anyone else. So it gives you an opportunity, especially as your children grow up. You know their personalities, you know who they are as fully formed individuals, and you can make those decisions as you see best will fit them and will help them in the future. I've seen situations where a trust can say that the child will get no distribution unless they're working. And if they're working, what it does is it will match whatever their salary is dollar for dollar. But so there are different things you can do. It's fully flexible. So it's just having those conversations. And again, that's something you would do with an estate planning attorney. You're not getting that in a DIY will.
Yeah, you're really not, are you? Okay, so before we move on, I just want to ask one more question about the will. So how often are you supposed to review this? I mean, what would you recommend in best practices?
So I would recommend best practices anywhere between 5 and 7 years to review it. And that's not necessarily saying you need to make changes, just to kind of go through and see that it's up to date. Also, whenever you hit any of the life cycle events. So the life cycle events are typically kind of when you relocate, you might want to kind of just look it over to make sure that it kind of fits into that state's laws that you move to. Marriage, divorce, when you have children, or there's a significant change in your wealth level, because then you can start dealing with a non-taxable estate versus a taxable estate.
And that's
because
over,
that can come into play.
Is that over $11 million or 21, something like that? The one you're talking about?
Yes. Depending on where your wealth level is. The Jobs Cuts and Tax Act of 2017 actually doubled the estate tax exemption from $5 million to $10 million indexed for inflation.
Per person.
So what that means is currently, yes. So currently, you have about $11.58 million per person in estate tax exemption, which for couples, that's about $23.16 million you can pass off. It's tax free. However, And in 2021, we already have the numbers. In 2021, it's going to increase from the 11.58 to $11.7 million, which is about $23.4 million for couples. However, the key to this is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 is set, like certain provisions of it are set to sunset in 2025. What that means is if Congress doesn't look at it and decide to make it permanent, it will go away, and it's likely that they will not. So that means it will drop back down to the 2017 levels. So you'll be about $5.6 million or wherever we were in 2017. And another thing to look at is we know an election just happened. And so
not yet.
With the new administration going in,
whatever, conspiracy guy.
It may change sooner.
We are just kidding, by the way.
Sooner, though. Well, we all know that Joe Biden came out and said he wants to repeal the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And if he does that, then you're going back to the $5 million exemption that we were at in 2017 sooner than 2025. And I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
Well, that's helpful. That is helpful. Okay, so let's say we're going to get our will done. Now, what's what's another document that everybody has to have?
Financial powers of attorney.
Okay, tell us about that.
So the financial powers of attorney is just, there are two different ways you can do it. Most of the time, I suggest doing durable financial powers of attorney. What that is once you sign it, it becomes effective. And that means that the person you name as your attorney, in fact, has the power to control all of your finances. And you can limit it in any way you can, but generally I do a broad one where if you become incapacitated, so say, Gwen, you were in a car accident, then Jeremy can start handling your finances on your behalf until you get better. So that's the long and short of a financial power of attorney.
Even though we're married,
for now.
You're hilarious. So even though we're married, he doesn't get that automatically?
No. So it depends, I will say.
Okay.
If you have joint accounts, then of course he has access to it. You both have access. But there are a lot of marriages where both partners and spouses decide to keep their assets separate. So they might have two separate bank accounts and a joint bank account. Well, your separate accounts, no, your spouse has no access to that unless there is a power of attorney.
So you're telling me that I have to tell him I have a secret account? As if I were organized.
You have to tell your lawyer.
As if I were organized enough to have my own account. Okay. Anyway.
Well, it's funny because actually prior to becoming an attorney, I actually majored in finance in undergrad. And one of the first questions they asked us in the first finance class was whether we think finances have a big part of marriages or a big part of divorce. And one of the questions was, do we think that a majority of couples have joint accounts or separate accounts?
Answer.
What effect does it have? And it was about 50-50.
Oh, really?
There are a lot of couples out there who don't hold joint accounts. They still work and operate as a business unit or a family unit, but they will still keep their separate accounts. Some people like to keep that autonomy.
See, we do it all together just because I think, if for no other reason, that we have a hard time managing one bank account. Shit, if we had to do two.
Just for the record, our business accounts are perfect. It's just that we neglect our personal stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Which has got to be normal because there's a lot more riding on a business account.
But we're getting better. I will say that I spent all last weekend making sure that our personal stuff mirrored our business stuff. So we're on the right track, and having you here is the other thing that we're doing. Okay, so durable power attorney, financial power of attorney. Did I say that right?
Yeah, durable power of attorney.
Okay.
I'll quickly mention a springing power of attorney, which I generally don't suggest, but some clients prefer it. A springing power of attorney does not take effect immediately. It takes effect on some kind of triggering event, and typically that trigger event is when you become incapacitated. So for example, if you were in that car accident and became incapacitated, that's when the power of attorney would take effect. But the problem with springing powers of attorney is there are times where finances have to be taken care of in the in-between time. The in-between time is what I'm going to call the time between a physician kind of declaring that you're incapacitated and you basically when you actually become incapacitated versus the time where the physician actually deems that you're incapacitated.
So then there's some family members.
Time,
then there'd be like some family members being like, "Oh, come on, we have to get somebody to say this. Like the doctor needs to say this," and other family members are like, "No."
Well, exactly. But and then you're going semi into another document that I mentioned, which is the medical directives, one of them being the advanced healthcare directive. Because when there's the difference between financial power of attorney and the medical directives, that the medical directives actually you can name a separate agent or the same agent who actually can make decisions on behalf of yourself for your medical care.
Okay, so because you need these documents like in an emergency, where should people put these things in their house? I mean, so because we can't find ours. We're like looking, we're like, okay, 2021, we're going to get organized. We're going to be real adults. And we're like, we made all this stuff. Where is it? So where
I think they're actually in our lockbox, but we haven't gone to check.
Where does it go?
So we bothered our lawyer to have him send it to us.
So it's typical for your estate planning attorney to retain the original documents for safekeeping. You would typically, and not all clients want their estate planning attorney to retain the documents. They want to do it themselves. There are pluses and minuses for both. Actually, there's a major minus for not having your attorney hold on to it, because when you want to go to probate a will, which is the process when you go take that original will to the courts want the original. If you were to leave it in a drawer in your house and your house were to burn down or something were to happen, there's a presumption that you revoked that will. And so you could have died intestate even though you've already done your estate planning. So that's why sometimes it's important for the attorney to hold on to the original, but you'll always have copies of it, whether it's electronic or a physical copy. And so that copy, we always suggest that our clients keep them in like a drawer at home or something like that, and just let one of the representatives that will be serving on your behalf know that, hey, if something were to ever happen to me, just go to this drawer. And that's all you need to say, tell them. If something were to happen to you, they'll go there. And typically with all of the documents, especially the will, it'll have the law firm's name on it and contact information. So they'll know, I need to contact this law firm to figure out what's going on with the estate plan. And then the law firm, the attorney can take and probate the will.
Potential mythbuster thing here. Is it actually better? Is a handwritten will better than one that's typed up?
No.
Okay.
It's worse.
It's worse. Okay.
Type everything.
Okay.
Some states will not accept a handwritten will except in certain circumstances.
See, that I had always heard that it demonstrated lucidity, or especially amendments to a contract by older people.
No. The best thing for a will, because the will, typically you'll see page, it'll be numbered in pages. And with all of the wills that I draft, it's page 1 of 2. So you know how many pages are there. And on that last page, you have, I typically do 2 witnesses and a notary, but each jurisdiction says what, dictates what's necessary for the will to be valid. So in DC, you actually only need 2 witnesses. There are some jurisdictions that say you need 3 witnesses. There are some jurisdictions that say you need a notary. So every jurisdiction, you have to look at your specific state law. But I typically try to do 2 witnesses and a notary, just so I'm safe in pretty much all the jurisdictions in the DMV, New Jersey, and most of the jurisdictions in the United States.
Do you recommend with the will that you put like your passwords? Because
not in the will, but
like in that same drawer.
Yes, you can put it in the same drawer, and that way that person has access to that as well. And I'll also say that every firm is different in how they do it, but I have a specific document that I've created for my clients. I call it the Final Wishes form. And what it does is it's a document that has no legal effect. You don't sign it or anything like that, but it's a few pages long. You can kind of keep track of all of your assets on it. And you can also kind of go into deeper detail into what your desires are for your funeral service and things like that. If there's a specific song you want to play, if you belong to a specific church, if there are specific people you want to speak, things like that. And also if there's any information you want to give to your personal representative or your trustees that isn't legally binding, but you say, I kind of want distributions to go to my child for these reasons, or I want you to take them on vacation once a year, or things like that. You can just kind of place in that final wishes form. That way it gives them some guidance.
So what's the other documents that people need?
So the one other document I would mention is for those parents or individuals with minor children, the designation of standby guardian. What that document is, it's important because one thing I had neglected to mention was under wills, if you have minor children, typically we'll have a guardian provision under your wills. So if something were to happen to both of you, who would you would like to be the guardian of your children? So what happens is wills don't take effect till after you pass away, obviously. So what happens if you're both driving down the road one day and you get into a car accident and you're incapacitated just temporarily? Who's going to take care of your children? That's where the designation of standby guardian happens. That's the life side of the form. So typically we would mirror that with the guardian provisions on your will. So we'd name the same people, and they would be able to take care of your children while you're in that temporary incapacitated state. And then when you regain capacity, obviously they're still legally your children. But that's the importance of that document. And one of the reasons I say that's a key document is that's one of the documents you really want to pay attention to, because the guardian provisions can, under your will, just say guardians for any of my minor children, whereas the designation of standby guardian specifically names each of your children. So if you have more children, you're going to need to update that document.
So, and this is actually germane. So now you're giving free legal advice to us, okay? Just to,
no legal advice. No legal
advice.
Well, no legal advice. Yeah, I know. But so we have a situation where the guardians live in another state right now. But my daughter's, she's 13 and 11, and that might be weird that all of a sudden we pass away and they've got to move. Would a contract, would the standby guardian, would it actually mandate that the children must move with the guardian if they're in another state, in another place? Or would there be a way, would the court say, you're going to this school, time's passed, you can go somewhere else?
So if you're talking about passing away, typically I've had situations like that with clients where the client will throw all of their money into a trust for their children, and they will say you can keep the house, and they want the guardian to move into the house, and the trust can pay the expenses and all of that, so the children can stay in the same schools that they're going to, and if that guardian has children themselves, that some of the money can be expended on that child. That way they're equal, they equalize the children. That way one child doesn't feel like they're lesser than the other or something like that. So there are different ways to deal with it, but that's a very specific thing, and that's something you would have to talk to an attorney about, because you need to figure out what your intentions are for your children and kind of have the attorney drafted appropriately for your situation.
Wow.
All right, well, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll talk to an attorney right now.
Okay. So those are like the main documents that everyone, regardless whether you're an entrepreneur or just have a job, you need those documents to be basically like a legit grown-up, right?
Yes.
You know you're adulting when you
check
have
that
these
box.
documents.
Okay, I'm an adult. I'm now 50, and I have a will. I'm an adult.
Reminder: adulting is not fun.
It's not fun.
So, for business owners specifically, what kind of legal documents do they need?
So I would say a lot of entrepreneurs know that they need an operating agreement. If you don't have one, typically, some people just start an LLC and don't have one. If you don't have an operating agreement, typically wherever your LLC is formed, there are some jurisdictions that have LLC laws, so you'll just be going off of state statute. Some buy-sell agreements, LLC assignments sometimes, and sometimes what I want to mention, even though I don't really get into the realm of life insurance, but it's something that we consider with estate planning, is key man insurance policies. Because sometimes if you're a key person to your business, upon your death, that there may be some time, like whatever you name your successor, there may be a learning curve for your successor to take to kind of learn what they need to do and the processes for your business. And you want to make sure that your company has enough liquidity in that time period for them to overcome that learning curve. And also you can have an organization set up, which I've actually done this before for clients, you can set up an organization where only blood relatives can inherit the shares of that business. And this is common with family partnerships. So because the person owns the shares, when they die, they may leave everything to their spouse, where their spouse is not a blood relative, so they might not be able to inherit those shares. So the organization may have to buy those shares from the estate. So the spouse will be compensated for whatever the value of those shares are, but the company might not be liquid enough in order to pay that. So that can be another area where key man insurance comes into play.
And a buy-sell maybe?
Yes, as well. A buy-sell as well.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. I feel more adult already.
So I think there's a decent chance that anybody that's listening is kind of like, oh my God, my life is going to be so much more difficult for the next couple of weeks while I get this stuff organized.
No, it's a good.
What are the steps to take? Like, what's the next step for anybody that needs to get something done that recognizes that they're behind and need to get going?
Definitely call an estate planning attorney. They will make the process so much easier for you. They will take into consideration everything you own, and they'll look at everything holistically. Estate planning, to me, is not just a will. It's looking at everything that you have, tying it together to make sure it coordinates with each other. And that one other aspect is beneficiary designations for your life insurance and policies and your retirement plans. You want to make sure that those coordinate with your entire estate plan as a whole as well.
Wow. Okay, so I want to ask you a few questions about, well, you're a business owner, so this is just an entrepreneurial question. What is your biggest boneheaded move that you've made as a business owner?
And so I'm going to keep this one short and not go into too much detail, but I'll say basically not listening to my intuition. There's a time that I made a decision before that was financially lucrative. So that's one of the reasons that I was driven to make the decision. I thought this is going to be great financially, but my gut told me not to make that decision. So sometimes it's best to follow your gut and not just go with whatever is going to make you the most money kind of thing.
So was it because making the more money, did it go against your values in general?
No, it just was a headache of a matter.
It wasn't worth the money.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not worth my time or money.
That is a good gut check before you make a big decision would be your advice.
Always follow your intuition. You know what's right for your business.
Awesome. And then what is a book that you would recommend to others?
So most recently, I've been kind of delving into Jim Collins' Good to Great. Basically, the full title is Good to Great, Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't.
That was such a pivotal book for me as well. It's like a classic, amazing book. So just for anyone watching on YouTube or on Apple, if you give Bootstrappers a 5-star review and a thoughtful comment, we will send you Good to Great by Jim Collins after this show. So, well, we want to thank you so much, James, for
thank you, James. Appreciate it.
I feel like you've emotionally supported me through this leap. And the fantastic advice, because I think as people go and see their estate planner, they can kind of check notes and make sure it jives with what you've said, and they have more conversation topics to bring up as they get good.
You're very welcome.
Legal advice.
Thank you so much for having me.
So again, James is with Jade Law in DC, and you can find him on the website in the show notes. So thanks, James.
Thank you.
Well, have a good one. And next up on Bootstrappers, we're going to talk about what it's like to have an entrepreneurial family, and we're actually going to interview our 13 and 11-year-old on what it's like to live in a household where both parents run companies.
Yeah, and we're going to tell them how much money they're going to inherit.
So that's next on Bootstrappers.
This has been Bootstrappers, a unique presentation designed to help you better understand how the world turns. Contact Gwen or Jeremy at hosts@bootstrappers.club or visit our website, anaquim.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. Thank you, and join us next time for Bootstrappers.